Mentally, this was the hardest marathon that I've ever run. I got into some dark places like 3 different times, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. Oh, hi. My name's Andrew. I started running 4 years ago at the age of 40, hence the name Midlife Runner, and I'm on a sub-3 journey. 7 weeks ago, I ran a 3:02:24 at the Houston Marathon, and yesterday I attempted the Revenge Marathon at the Woodlands, in which I ran a 3:08:28. Epic fail. Or as my 4-year-old likes to say, epic fail. Okay, so chapter 1, the first dark place. It happened in the first 3 miles. And I'm gonna spend the majority of this video talking about the first 5K because it includes the most important takeaway from the marathon and why I did not run a sub-3. Spoiler alert, it was not because Kafuzi did not fly down to the Woodlands and cheer me on at mile 2 and tell me that I was running so strong.
You're so strong! You are so strong!
Here's what happened.
First mile was a 6:55, but my heart rate is already 170, so I had to slow down.
Now, I knew this scenario was entirely possible because if you're watching this and you want to know the main reason why I didn't run a sub-3, it's because on Wednesday, I caught a virus. I got mildly sick. I didn't have like a really high fever or anything. It's just like my brain was really foggy. I was like on a lag. Kind of felt high. Not that I would know what being high felt like, but like I've seen movies in the movies when they describe it and what it sounds like, it kind of felt like that. Also, my voice dropped a few octaves, and usually that excites me whenever I get sick and my voice drops because I feel more like a man. Then I get sad because I realize I'm not going through puberty and there's no more growth spurts coming. Anyways, the resting heart rate at night jumped up into the 50s, where normally it's around 46 or 47. And then when I went on an easy run, my easy pace was about 30 seconds slower to 40 seconds slower at the same heart rate than it normally is. But I tried not to stress out and I tried to remain positive, which was very challenging. So like on one hand, I was extremely grateful that it wasn't COVID or the flu or something that would knock me completely out. But on the other hand, I knew that I was not 100%, which is very frustrating because this is gonna sound absurd. But I started tracking like how frequently I got sick. I didn't get sick once in 2023. Not even a cold, not once, nothing. And for this to happen 4 days out from race day, anyway, on race day, I decided to put on my favorite shades. These are made by a company called Denial. Awesome company. Not a lot of people have heard of them. Now, the race, it's on a Saturday. So we woke up on Friday. My wife said that overnight I was sweating a lot and that I probably sweated out. And the way she said it, something about the tone of her voice, made her sound like a scientist. Now, on the night before the race, my resting heart rate was still also at a 52, but I told myself this is probably just race day nerves. And as for like the 55 to 65 degree weather with 100% humidity, well, I'm fine because I'm built different. The dog, it's in me. I have got the dog in me. But alas, in mile 1, you can hear the sound of reality settling in.
First mile was a 6:55, but my heart rate is already 170, so I had to slow down. It sucks.
Okay, for context, my magic number is 173 beats per minute, which means that's the number where I start to burn matches and I need to stay below that number. In the weeks leading up to this marathon, even 7 days prior, all my marathon pace efforts had me at about 163 beats to about 168 beats, and I was running 640s versus this.
All right, mile 3 was a 7:12. Mile 2 was a 7:03 or something. Yeah, heart rate is not good.
And it is at this point where things got dark. Because even though I knew the scenario was possible, I had only thought of the scenario up into this point. I had not thought past it. So I'm looking ahead and I know the math, right? I feel like I've been in 3 to 3:10 shape forever, so I know what pace equals what. And this feels like a 3:05 to a 3:10 marathon, 11 to 22 seconds off of my goal pace. But for the first time, I realize it's not gonna feel like I'm running 11 to 22 seconds off my goal pace. It is my goal pace. I'm gonna suffer. I am going to receive the standard amount of marathon suffering. There's no coasting today. I'm gonna have to send it and hurt for something resembling like my third fastest marathon. Now, this was a first for me, okay? The Woodlands marked year 4 of running. Being new to running, one of the benefits is that every time you race, it's a new PR, right? I've never ran a race focused and gone backwards in time. And my brain sometimes falls into the toxic all or nothing thinking. Well, you know, if I'm not gonna PR, what's the point? You know, I might as well jog this thing in. So I call my wife. I know her and the kids are tracking me and they're gonna meet me at mile 13, so I wanna make sure that I leverage expectations and let them know what's going on. I call my wife, full of self-pity, right? And the thing about self-pity is that it's very self-centered, right? It's centered around the self. It is not selfless. And here at Midlife Runner, you know, we're here to spread the love, to spread the light, to spread the laughter, the 3 L's. We're trying to give the L's, okay? We're not trying to take the L's, we're trying to give them. And I'm a super positive dude. An eternal optimist is like one of my superpowers. But I'm human. And my spirit was crushed a bit. So I call her all mopey and negative. I can't run threshold for 3 hours. It's not gonna work. I can't run sub 3. I'm never gonna run sub 3. It's never gonna happen, right? And being the queen that she is, she starts seeding some positivity, saying things like, well, you know, maybe your heart just needs to get settled a little bit. Maybe it just needs to warm up. Maybe things will calm down. And of course, I'm not having any of it because the stupid gray humid sky is literally falling on me. And so we hang up. Then she sends me a text message. This text message says, Miles thinks you can do it. I'm related to Miles. Miles is my son. He's in 5th grade. This was a kick in my nuts. And when I say nuts, I mean in my heart. It snapped me out of it. I was like, well, okay, let me just run a couple more and let's reassess.
Well, did mile 4 at a 6:55 and mile 5 at a 7:10.
So the first 5K was really about letting go of sub 3 and overcoming the ensuing spiral of self-pity. And from 5K to 10K, that was like a regrouping and seeing what the day had to offer.
Mile 4 was touching on threshold, so that's not gonna work. And then mile 5 is with what felt like marathon pace, and that is somewhere between a 3:05 and a 3:10. So I think I'm gonna switch my goal to a 3:05.
But then this happened.
Mile 6, mile 7, 6:49s. Overall pace 6:59. 7 seconds off. So let me try to close it for the half. Get a few seconds off and see what I can do. It's not over.
Something about being in the 650s really sort of triggered the, well, wait a second, maybe it's still on the table. And my new plan was the same plan that I had last year at the Woodlands, which was this.
Mile number 9 was a 6:51. I'm gonna try to scoot the overall pace down before the half within 6:56 or 6:57. Then I'm gonna switch to running 6:48s. 6:47. Mile 10 was a 6:54. My overall pace is 6:57. Mile 11, 6:50. Mile 13, 7:03. Saw the family, got some water. All right, now we're gonna turn it up. Try to land in the 6:40s for half marathon. See what happens.
So I see the family at mile 13. I grab the water and I start to run off. I realize I'm carrying like too much stuff, this other water bottle that I had. So I called back to them and set it down. It cost me about like 10 seconds. And then I shot off into the 640s and then slowed down to the 650s here.
Hit mile 15, mile 16, slowing down. Try not to throw up. Whoop.
That's right. Halfway into mile 14, I encountered my second obstacle, which was I felt like I had to barf. Okay, we need to talk about this. The last 2 marathons, Maurten. I've been taking Maurtens, and I took the big boys, the 160s. Something about them. Maybe they're too sugary, maybe they're too gelatinous. Gelatinous. Did I say gelatinous? Gelatinous. I don't know. it's a little bit much. I feel like after number 3 or like the 4th one, maybe mile 12, mile 16, they just sit right here. And then whatever fluids that I take, it kind of bubbles and I'm just like, hop, 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 hop. Anyway, I'm on the market for new gels. So if you have any suggestions, please slide into my comments because I am over it. Bicarb. Yeah, okay, more like, okay, thanks, bye, carb. No. Okay, the second dark place, the mile 16.
Almost barf on 17 or 16 when I went over the mile marker. Holding it in.
All right, now I know that I can't be landing on this side of 7, right? Or this side of 6:52. So I had to re-accept no sub 3 again, all over it. But I knew the drill about the negativity, so I was speaking positivity at it. And I kept telling myself it was a beautiful day.
On pace for a 3:05. Not today, fam. But it's okay. We're gonna soak it in. It's a good day. Beautiful.
But it took a while to convince my body because my mind was just going. So, I mean, say what I want, my pace was slowing to about a 7:45. And what pulled me out of the funk was this guy.
It's a good day.
Jeff Kinlan. Now, my man Jeff was on a mission. So he stopped, but he slowed down and talked to me just for a little bit. Said he watched last year's Woodlands Marathon, said he was on pace for a 3:05 or that his goal was a 3:05. We were currently on pace for a 3:05, but then he took off. He just started closing it like a machine, and that was inspiring. And I was like, yes, Jeff, let's go. And I picked it up and it snapped me out of it and I kept going.
Mile 17 was a 7:38 or 7:30. Mile 18 was a 7.
So mile 17, I was at that 7:45. I closed it down to a 7:27, and then the next mile was a 7-minute pace. Now enter the third dark place. I just finished the 18th mile. I'm a bit winded, and I have this thought. One thought, 9 more miles to go. Now, having an English degree, being an English major, and talking to you in front of a bookshelf, let me explain to you how math works. 18 plus 9 is 27, and a marathon is 26.2. I was not mathing the best out there. And more importantly, I made probably the biggest marathoning mistake that you can make, which is not to run the mile that I was in, but to pull back and look at the marathon in a big picture. That's overwhelming. I had just been fighting and fighting for something close to a 3:05, and to realize I'm only 2/3 of the way there, I got so overwhelmed. This didn't happen in Houston. 7 weeks prior when I did the Houston Marathon, I wrote down a person on my wrist for every single mile on my forearm. So every mile I ran for somebody, so I was always focused on that person and I never saw the big picture. Well, I didn't do that for this race. So my pace slowed down to about a 7:45 and I started to do the math again. And for a reader like myself at mile 19, this kind of felt like calculus. Here was my quitter's logic. A 7:45 pace is only 1 minute off of my goal pace, and I've got 7 miles left. So instead of running my PR pace, I'm going to finish the marathon only 7 minutes slower, right? I'm only gonna be out here another 7 minutes if I just keep this pace up. Now, conversely, if I push and I suffer and I really, really grind it out, I can finish a whole 3.5 minutes faster, but still in about an hour. But an hour of suffering versus an hour of kind of coasting it in. So for 2 miles, the quitter's logic won. But then this happened.
All right, it didn't go according to plan today, but we just crossed mile 20. And I said mile 21 and 22 are gonna be for Cole and Evan at All Heart RC. They're not gonna look as fast as those 6:30s. Let's see what we can do. We're gonna push.
Now, for context, Cole and Evan are 17 years old and 12 years old respectively. There's a channel, All Heart RC. You can follow them on the gram, on YouTube. Anyway, they just ran a sub 3 at the Ventura Marathon the week prior, and I told them I would dedicate a mile to them. And this is what snapped me out of this funk.
All right, Cole. 4 seconds faster than the previous mile. That's what you got.
And after this mile, my spirits were lifted. My body was still saying, you know, slow down. And I was like, look at me, look at me. I'm the captain now.
I woke up in a new Bugatti. I woke up in a new Bugatti. Run, Jake. Let's go. Well, Evan, 7:27.
So I decided to continue this trend and run the next 4 miles for my family.
Mile number 22. Mile 22 for the middle child. Miles, here we go, boy. I got you. All right, 7:25 for you, Miles. This next one's your Maybelline, the oldest. The oldest, 7:23. Youngest, Major. Here we go. 2 more. This one's for you, baby boy. Sonic ain't got on me. Tails, maybe, but baby boy was a 7:23. Last one for the wife, 7:07.
And for the last 0.2, just like last year, I got to run it in a way with my middle child, Miles. Miles got wheels, y'all. So he's really getting into running. Last year, he actually hopped on the course and ran underneath the chip timer deal. And I was like, hey, we can't do that this year. So he knew, he ran alongside me, and that was really cool. And the icing on the cake, if you watched the Houston Marathon recap, you know that I said when I finished, there was a volunteer who wanted to take a picture. We took a picture and I said, man, I wish I would have asked him or had the mindfulness to send that picture to my wife. Well, guess what? Blam. His name is Scott, and this is what he looks like. And this is what he sounds like.
Let's go! Yo, baby! Let's go! Let's go!
Man, let's
Woo!
Scott, thank you for your encouragement. You are an awesome person. Volunteering and being of service at the marathon while you rehab your injury is what life is all about, and is the kind of selfless inspiration that I needed. Not just at the end of the race, but also just in life in general. You, sir, are a king. So my biggest takeaways from this marathon is that when I mentally find myself wrapped up in self-pity or it feels like too much, think of others and stay present. Number 2, it's about the effort, not the results. I can only control one of those 2 things. Guys, this was a character builder for sure, and I'm glad I did it. Now, what really happened? Was it the illness? Was it the weather? Was it the fact that I ran marathons back to back, only 6 weeks apart or whatever? Maybe both. Maybe both of them is happening at the same time. Yeah, true, but probably mostly whatever virus I had, because all I know is the week prior I was running 15 or 20 seconds faster at marathon pace. Regardless, even if I was at 100%, I still would have had to battle the humidity, the heat, and I had these marathon legs, so it's not like sub 3 was a lock if I didn't get sick, so there's still that. Sub 3, the journey continues. So I have an analogy that I like to use when it comes to running and aerobic fitness, and that's bodybuilding. And this doesn't just apply to bodybuilders, but also like really dedicated gym bros, the guys who seem to live there. They didn't always look like that. At one point in time, they had new muscle, they had to develop it. They spent many years periodizing, gaining, progressive overload, all of that stuff. And after about 10 or so years, they started to, realize their full genetic potential. And the cool thing about running, especially later in life as a midlife runner, is that similar to weightlifting, you can get those same sort of gains, like 10 years of gains, no matter when you start running. And like for me, I've been running for 4 years. So I feel like I'm fast, but I'm really just like a dude just getting out of high school who thinks he's tough. But then like I'm at the gym and there's the old leathery tan guys with the spaghetti strap tops that come over and just like hop down and bench like 100 more pounds than me for reps. right? Like they got that old man strength, and I'm there with that new muscle. Another similarity between the two fields is that like bodybuilders, they don't train for shows year round. They follow periodization. So they may go through like a strength training block, and then they may do a bulk period after that, and then they'll cut, and then they'll train for shows. And similarly, as a runner, you don't train for marathons or races all year round. So I'm gonna switch over into like a base building period, and then I might switch over to a speed block, and then eventually I'll get and start training for the Marine Corps Marathon, which isn't until the end of October. And will that be a sub 3 attempt? I don't know, I wanna say 3 more things. Number 1, the sub 3 goal for me currently is just a stretch goal, okay? It's just a nice round number, but for you, your stretch goal may be a 245 or a 330 or a 415. It doesn't really matter. The sub 3 thing, it's not the point. It's not the end game. It's not my everything bagel. It's just a target. Number 2, I want to thank everybody who has liked, subbed up, commented on the Stravas or the YouTubes. Rooting for other people is one of the greatest joys of my life, and it feels very foreign to be on the other end of it sometimes. So I just wanted to take this moment to say thank you. And of course, number 3, naturally,